In the heart of Magadi, Kajiado County, fear has gripped the community.
Sai sisi wa mama anaogopa huyu mtu anaitwa Lorgali. Sai siwezi tembea kila mama mmoja. Naenda na mama mbili kama watatu. Shauri anaogopa huyu mtu Lorgali.
Wasungu hawezi kuja hapa kila siku hapa. Sisi nakuja kukaa hapa hata hakuna mtu unahusia hakuna.
A man is on the loose, wreaking havoc and preying on women.
Hii mtu Lorgali amesumbua wamama sana. Sana na wamama wazee na watoto wasijana. Hata saa hii watoto wanaenda shule, sisi anaamuka asubuhi saa 11 naenda na watoto mpaka shule na narudi tena nyumbani.
The impact devastating.
Naona amepeana sisi kazi mingi sana. Na sisi anaenda machungani na naamuka usiku saa 10 tabeleka watoto shule na hata shule ni mbali. Narudi tena kufanya kazi ya nyumbani anaenda Mbusi tena.
The statistics are alarming. Out of 26 girls who sat for their KCSE exams in 2024, 22 were reported pregnant. The latest victim, an 80-year-old woman who was brutally assaulted.
Sijui kama iko kisu. Unafanya mambo mbaya sana kwa hii dunia, nasumbua mama na watoto na hii si mzuri. Naomba nyinyi serikali asaidie sisi wa mama na watoto atafute hii mtu ashike.
Where is justice for these women? Why has this continued unchecked? And what can be done to stop the cycle of gender-based violence? This is a crisis that cannot be ignored. To help us unpack this issue and discuss possible solutions, we're joined by Dr. Victor Omondi, Director of Forensic Science at Crevet Mulia & Co., and Pastor Susie Ndanyi, Deputy General Secretary of NCCK and a member of the Gender-Based Violence Task Force. The conversation on Crosstalk starts now.
Welcome to Crosstalk. I was privileged to attend an event. It was more of a fireside chat event organized by Crevet Mulia & Co. This event was looking at the intersection of the economy, gender, and climate justice. But amidst the conversations and the discussions that went around that during the event, one story shook me to the core. That out of the 26 girls who sat for their Kenya secondary education exam last year, 22 out of that number were reported pregnant. It's a case of young lives and their futures messed up with. And one person who shared that story is the forensic director at the Crevet Mulia & Co., Dr. Victor Omondi. Dr. Victor is my guest today, just to paint the picture of what it looks like when we talk about gender and justice. I'm also going to be joined by, at some point, the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General of the NCCK, to also look at this issue from a church perspective. And joining me now is Dr. Victor Omondi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
John Paul, for having me, and Family Media TV for
Yes.
having me as well.
Yes.
I'm honored to be on your show today.
And thank you for creating an opportunity
Yes.
and time
Yeah.
to be part of this.
Yep.
Before we get to the discussion, and it
Yes.
was my pleasure to meet with you at the event.
Pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, there's the aspect of when we talk about gender and justice.
Yes.
The misconception that every time we mention the term gender, we're only speaking about women.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Unfortunately, no, that is not the case. Based from the word gender, we look at gender by the terminology. It involves both male and female. So yes, it might be a misconception, but we might look at it as it affects women the most. So when we talk about sexual-based gender violence, yes, it affects women the most, but no, it affects both male and female. And when we intersect gender and justice, we are talking about how does both male and female get access to justice to improper abuse.
Joining us in this conversation as well, as I had mentioned earlier, is Ms. Susie Ngosi Ndanyi. Mrs. Susie is the Deputy Secretary General at the NCCK, and she also sits at the National Gender Equality Commission. Looking at just the conversation we are having with Dr. Omondi here, what would you say, in your perspective, constitute to gender equality?
Okay, let me first start by introducing myself. I am Pastor Susie Ndanyi. I am a pastor with the Quaker Church, specifically Nairobi Yearly Meeting, and I am now working as the Deputy General Secretary of the National Council Churches of Kenya. So it is an honor to be on Crosstalk and just to debunk some of these things that you have been talking about. And this is a wonderful platform for us to express ourselves, especially in the religious sector. This is a human right issue. We're looking at aspects of access to facilities that are supposed to be available to a person, a human being, should be then available to both. Is it education? So that now when a child goes to school, either male or female, just because I'm a woman, and then because of my orientation, my physical nature, that time of the month when I'm not able to be very functional because of my going through my menses, I should not be denied to get to school because I'm in that space where my body is doing what it does best. And so we find that ladies are put aside because of that. So the justice here is then I should, as a lady, then education should be acceptable, should be available to me in all spaces, in all spheres, and not only, and so that such concerns need to be taken care of, so then I can be able to go to school. So for me then I would say equality is where now there is affirmative action to make sure that girl child who did not qualify or get to the pass mark is actually picked out, despite the fact that they didn't get to the cutoff point, but they're able to be picked out and then given equal access to university education.
When you talk about gender equality,
Yes.
what does this constitute? So that we have a better picture or
Yes.
portrait of what we are desiring to achieve.
Yes. When we speak about gender equality, we are looking at both sides whereby both male and female are affected in such a way that they are denied their human rights. Mm-hmm. And in order to address gender equality, you can only address gender equality by understanding what is gender equality. From the term again, gender. Gender is both male and female or male. Equality, equal, of balance, equal opportunities, equal chances to survive and live this life. So when we say gender equality, it's basically saying because we were both born equal, male and female, we have equal rights to access equal access to justice. Mm-hmm. And by justice we mean access to legal, professional ethics that protect your human rights. Mm-hmm. And the only way we can also avoid and voice gender equality is by acknowledging that human rights can only be protected by laws that are ethically correct and sound and protects the dignity of both male and female.
Let's get back to the story of these 22
Yes.
girls from Kajiado.
Yes.
In Magadi.
Yes.
Just paint a picture of what you observed carrying your work at that place.
So basically, I would like to say professionally, I'm a forensic specialist. I have a background in medical biochemistry, forensic science, and forensic pathology, and that includes the full spectrum of forensic science. So last week, I had the opportunity to be invited as a consultant for a case in Magadi, which is in Kajiado. So this case was of a serial rapist within the region that is committing heinous acts and then disappearing within the community. But for this to raise an alarm in the community, this perpetrator was involved and committed heinous act to the elders of the community. So the elders of the community, that is, an 85-year-old woman was a victim of sexual-based violence, gender-based violence. And if you look at it that way, if a sexual rapist can affect or come and commit heinous acts to the matriarch of the community, then where are we headed? So going to Magadi, unfortunately, addressing those cases of serial rapists, we came across other burdening situations within the community. And one of the saddest was affecting the young girls within the community. Affecting the young girls in the sense that out of a staggering statistic, out of 26 girls who are doing their KCSE examination, in order to determine who they will become or how they will live their lives, 22 of them finished the exam while pregnant. And if you look at that statistics, one of the girls was top performing in her class, but now after exams, she came out the lowest. Now, looking at that situation, how would you help someone who had a vision and a dream to become a successful being within the society? And yet, at such a young age, she has already been given or imposed certain responsibilities that are not yet of maturity of her choice. That is a shocking news. So we were able to attend and arrive in this community. And there is a lot of factors that are contributing to this gender inequality. Yeah.
Let me bring in Madam Susie again in this matter. Sure. In terms of the numbers that you have mentioned, we are talking about 22 girls who just sat their KCSE pregnant. If you look at this as a member of the commission, what runs into your mind?
First, I must say that my heart goes out to an old woman who has been, her body has been broken down, her dignity has been taken away. And these young girls who are now carrying life in their bodies, and yet they're not able to economically, or their life has been put on a standstill for a while. And the people who are responsible for this, their life is continuing. And so it is, yes, it seems elusive, and it is, yes, justice seems to be elusive, because one, we don't speak up. We don't speak up, and there's a lot of shame and guilt and anger in personalities that have been affected, so that when such a thing happens to a young girl, first, it is a shameful act in the community. You feel that people are pointing fingers at you, and therefore you keep quiet. Most likely, almost 90%, the people who are in charge of this hideous acts are known in the community, and therefore they have a measure of authority and power. And so speaking against or going against, speaking against people who have power in the community, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage, which many of these girls or many people don't have. So then that way, if I'm not able to speak up or speak out to people who have meted out this injustice, then of course the perpetrators will not be caught. And then the other aspect is getting evidence, gathering evidence. You can imagine a sexual violation, whether domestic or whatever nature. So long as it's a sexual violation, you will need evidence. And by the time that data is preserved, number one. Second, collected, so that by the time the prosecutor is going to court to bring up a case, that evidence is tampered with a lot. And so in many instances, then justice, the perpetrator will not be put to book. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but just to get back to what you are talking about, how come justice doesn't seem to be getting to the people who require it? And for me, I would say the silence around it, the shame, the guilt, because these are things that happen in secret, And so bringing out in the open, our culture hasn't taught us to speak out and to speak up. Yeah.
We are discussing gender and justice. It's beyond my imagination that you can have an 86-year-old woman raped by somebody who is just moving around a community. Somebody just gets into a community, rapes a woman, then leaves and waits for the next person to pound on. So sad at this time. When we are talking about freedom, we are talking about policies and laws that protects women. So we are coming back on this conversation just to look at, if we have all these cases, and maybe in your county, you are also seeing these similar cases, share with us. Let's engage and see also how we can engage Dr. Victor in terms of just reaching out and bringing solutions into our communities, even as they do what they do at their organization. We take a short break. You can be sharing your feedback on our SMS line 20316. Our WhatsApp line is 0786 316 316. We'll be right back after this short break.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it?
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio 316 straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. We are discussing gender and justice. How can we achieve justice when you talk about gender equality? When I was preparing for this discussion, I shared with a friend of mine about the topic, and this is what she sent me back. She mentioned that gender justice can only be achieved through God's principles of man and woman as entities. She further went ahead and said, advocacy for gender inclusivity should start at family level and consistently held through other social circles. And the last point was, issues of inequality and violence are as a result of a fallen man from God's grace. Man and woman should never be compared. They are not competitors, but complementers. Dr. Victor.
Yes.
Man and woman should not be compared. As we look at why is this conversation of gender inequality and gender justice not a mainstream conversation? What do you think about those thoughts?
So, first and foremost, I would like to say, well, like that last statement, gender is? You just repeat it. So gender is?
Issues of inequality and violence are as a result of fallen man from God's grace. Man and woman should never be compared. They are not competitors, but complementers.
Yes. They are not competitors, but are complementers of each other. That is a powerful statement. And to back that statement is basically because under the terminology gender. Gender supports both male and female. And you find within even that statement, gender inequalities are the result of a fallen man. Fallen man does not mean a dead person. Fallen man in the sense that our responsibilities as men and our responsibilities as women have been so forgotten and misaligned with other misdirections and misappropriations that have led to inequality. So inequality in the sense that there's diminished resources, lack of financial resources, lack of food and security at home, within the homestead, outside the homestead, lack of job security, that are all factors that are contributing to gender justice and gender inequality. Gender equality can only be achieved and advocated and voiced for if both man and woman come together and complement each other. Complement in the sense that you are meant to support each other to thrive within the community. Because if you look at it, the backbone and the pillar of the society and the community is the woman. Is the woman, and it is holistic in the sense that it affects us all because we are all interconnected. The woman is the one who gives a stable homestead, provides for the family, and takes care of the child. Remember, gives birth to the child. And if the woman is not guided and protected by the full lunar cycle of the moon, then who are we to say that the seasons of the earth are not guided by the seasons of the moon? So it is bigger than what we think, and it is larger than us. So we have to look at it.
Why has this not taken a mainstream approach in terms of conversations?
Why has this not taken a mainstream approach? Let us be clean and clear and speak about what is actually happening.
At least from where you sit, you also sit at the helm of NCCK, which is an organization that brings Pentecostal and churches together. What do you see as a role or as the role of the Kenyan church in addressing issues of gender injustice?
That is the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. Because first, the premise on the table is that justice is an individual, me and you, a moral issue that we both must desire to achieve justice. Once we are on that table, on that premise, then these other things then become aiding us to get the justice, because the laws in Kenya are wonderful. We have enough laws that move towards justice. Knowledge, like now I'm glad that Crosstalk is now putting it out in the public so that people are aware, so that awareness comes to me, comes to you, and then when you see your sister or your brother being mutilated or emotionally deprived or going through injustice situations, then you can speak up. And when you speak up, then you know what else is available, that you can go to a church that can give you a shelter, that you can tell your sister they don't have to stay there, even if the culture of the day says that a woman has to be in her homestead, a married woman, then you demystify that and show love. So can justice be achieved? I would want to say a resounding yes. It can be done. And in this generation, me and you, we can achieve it, yeah, because we are both human. Who says one human being is superior than the other? We are all equal in the eyes of God, yeah. So the God that is in you is the same God that is in me. Why should a human being cause another human being to suffer?
This dream of or a call for free, just, and equitable society.
Yes.
It looks like it's a far-reached call that only remains a dream in our minds.
It is a far-reached call that only remains in our dream in our minds, because if you look at gender justice, and I would say this, it affects both man and woman, and there is no grave sin than violating human rights and not protecting one's dignity. There is no grave sin. And with all the laws of the land, we should be able to acknowledge that gender violence or sexual-based, gender-based violence is one of the highest criminal acts that one could ever experience, and violation of human rights. And it starts from the small things.
What would you say have been some achievements that you've seen? Yes. And how can then people who are suffering in silence reach out?
If you look at Crevit Mulya, even the word Mulya, it stands for the word woman. And one of the objectives at Crevit Mulya is provide medical legal intervention through access to legal justice to protect our survivors within the legal system.
Okay.
Yes.
Where would you rank Kenya in terms of its push for gender equality and justice?
Oh my, based on the statistics, this is debilitating because Kenya is known for its prowess in the track and field, yes? But now, if you look at the projection in which, or the direction in which Kenya is going, I'm afraid to say this, we'll be known for other things and for the wrong reasons. Because look at Kenya, a small country within East Africa, now statistically is trying to compete with a country like DRC in terms of gender violence. And if you look at DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is 19 times bigger than Kenya, is experiencing 300 to 500% increase yearly in gender violence. While in Kenya, small as we are, but big as a nation, we're experiencing 3% increase daily in gender violence. In a day, within Nairobi alone, handle over 1,500 cases of gender violence. That's within Nairobi alone, and you have the other 42, or the other counties within the region. Look at Magadi, 26 out of 22, which is Magadi is just part of north of Kajiado. And if you still look at Kajiado, east, west, and south, there's still a huge fraction. So you haven't even included the other population. And if we continue monthly, 13% to 30% increase in gender violence, that's a bad statistics.
Lastly, how do we start to have a conversation that is going to take care of every other person, not just women, but also men? Because sometimes we've also seen where issues of women are pushed and the boy child is left lagging behind. So how do we make these two work together?
First, I can say with confidence we have wonderful, great minds on the task force. That's why it's called a task force. We are heavily engaged. We are in Bomas of Kenya half the time. But for me as a member of the task force is to get to a place where we are moving together, and violence, especially meted upon human beings, that needs to come to a stop. Justice needs to be done, yes, such that when a person causes another one harm or injury, let the law takes its course, one, because we have a great system, a pipeline where these things can happen, but there are roadblocks, as I said earlier, evidence not being received, or you go to reports and there's a lot of apathy, you're not received as a survivor very, very, very warm, so you feel the anger, the shame, the guilt. And so for me, I would say let institutions adequately do their work. Institutions from the social side, like churches, institutions from the government side, institutions like the children's departments, because this violence also affects children in their homes, institutions like the church. So if we, all of us, move together in one direction, this can be stopped. So the outcome is first awareness. Let us actively be aware that this is happening. The economic states of people also, the mental health is what is also causing it, so that then let us also speak about it. Because when we hide things under the table, then it doesn't help us. So ultimately, what I want to get out of it, what I wish we can achieve as a task force, is to create awareness. And number two, let's put every institution that is able to be responsive to be responsible for the work that they're expected to do. And then finally, even families, the foundation of society is the family. So can we start from there? Speaking on our dinner tables, can we start opening up these discussions that are happening? And then what I would wish, faith-based, from Muslims to Indians to Christians, across the board, the messaging, because still Kenyans still have a lot of belief in religious institutions. And so what we say counts. Let's use those platforms and amplify the voice.
Thank you so much, Madam Susie, for your contribution on this discussion. And we pray that as a nation, we'll get to a point where gender justice will be a dream that we desire to have. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And looking forward to engaging with you more in different forums as well, including this one of Crosstalk. And if there are other statistics, please let us know.
Definitely.
So that as Crosstalk and as family media, we can make this a mainstream conversation.
Thank you so
much. We can do it. We don't need to wait for others to do it.
Definitely.
It's about us.
It is upon us.
Thank you so much for watching Crosstalk and for listening to us this evening. It is said, and this is something that I found out, that majority of countries that have done well in terms of improving gender equality in their countries and in their institutions perform very well when it comes to ranking of happiness, in terms of just ranking of nations. You've seen annually nations are ranked in terms of their happiness levels. Only those countries that have managed to achieve gender equality are ranked the top. Where do we rank as a people? Until next week, have a good night.